Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and we are recording this on July 4th. We're going to go over the news today. The markets are closed for the U.S. session, so there's no updates for the financial markets. But let's go over the news. I'll give you my commentary on it. We'll probably start with the video with Bassett being interviewed on CNBC. But please help support the work that I do by subscribing to all the channels I have. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please subscribe to all those. Get the notifications. Follow me on X. Follow me on GETTR. In addition, if you could share the links and ask your social media to follow me, I greatly appreciate it. If you like the content that I do, could you please help support the work by buying the products that I have on my store and or donating on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or buy me a coffee. You can also be a paid member to my Patreon channel. All these videos that I do are for free. And the social contract, with my audience is that I'll do these videos for free if you help support the work that I do. So please help us support the work. I greatly appreciate it. And for the ones that have been supporting me for the last many years, more than 5 years or so, thank you very much for your patronage. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. These are supplements that I take to slow down the aging process and to get healthy. So if you follow my lead, I'm going to explain to you how to stack these in an affordable way to target certain systems of your body so you can slow down the aging process and get healthy. All right? So let's just start with one great product that's super important, and that's toothpaste. All right, I have a structural nanosilver toothpaste. It has no fluoride. This toothpaste is the best toothpaste that you can purchase. Get a few tubes of this toothpaste for your household. It'll whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, help with the health of your gum line, reduce inflammation at the gum line. And with good oral hygiene, you're helping your vascular system and your valvular system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get this toothpaste. Very high quality. Get a few tubes of it for your household. I also have a great supplement that will help you sleep. It's called Goodnight Formula. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. What this will do is get you into this deep cycle and REM cycle that you need to be able to consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system, and to be well rested. When you do this on a regular basis, you will improve your memory and help with the health of your neurons. Super important. Being well rested on a regular basis is going to slow down the aging process. Now, part of the reason is that if you're chronically sleep deprived, you're going to have elevated cortisol levels. Now, when you have elevated cortisol levels, that's going to be immunosuppressive, and elevated cortisol levels does damage to certain tissues. So you want to bring down your cortisol levels. You need proper sleep for that. In addition, being in 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep, you're going to be detoxifying your central nervous system and consolidating memory. So you're helping the health of your neurons. So it's really important to do every day. So please go to my store, get the Goodnight Formula. Again, it has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. Take it every day. Super important. You're going to start noticing in the next 5 years, your social network having individuals within that social network with problems of cognitive function. Now it's going to, or even balancing issues. Some of the manifestations that you'll start to notice within your social network, your friends and family, coworkers, you're going to start seeing people shake, like a Parkinsonian shake. People have gait issues or balancing issues, you'll notice. They'll be less active. Their activity will start to go down. Their vitality will start to go down. You may actually see individuals having issues with their eye, maybe the way that their eye tracks or the way their eye is focusing. You may even see memory issues. Individuals are going to start to talk slower. So this is going to happen in 5 years. Now, I've done a video on why this is happening. This is part of the aftershock of 2020. and what those probabilities are, and the percentage of the population and what the probabilities are. You know, a big part of it is vascular and why this is. Part of it is amyloidosis, and then there's a subcategory which is the prion category, which is a very small percentage. But the issue here is that many people are going to have cognitive decline in 5 years. You're going to see that in 5 years. So please pay attention, take my advice, and start protecting your neurons now. Because once you start having the problem, you can't reverse it. You can maybe prevent further degeneration, but you want to prevent the beginnings of the degeneration. So please take my advice. The next wave of the aftershock is cognitive decline. There's a way to mitigate it. So pay attention to me. Like I said, detoxifying your central nervous system, consolidating memory, giving micronutrients to those neurons, and helping the health of those neurons are super important. And you can do that. You can consolidate memory and detoxify the central nervous system by sleeping properly, getting in the deep cycle of REM, deep sleep cycles and the REM cycles, and taking goodnight formula, right? Because of the ingredients in here, you're going to be able to consolidate that memory and you're going to be well rested. Well, if you have proper sleeping or slowing down the aging process, that's just an added protective layer to protect those neurons. So it's really important. It's not the only thing to take. And we'll go over other supplements that will help to protect neurons. But very important, the next 5 years to 10 years, you're going to see in your social network people having cognitive decline. Another manifestation of this, you're going to start seeing people going, or they're having a hard time finding the word. All right. Now, everyone once in a while will talk and they kind of lose track of their thinking process, right? That's just normal. But if it's happening on a regular basis, especially in the same conversation, that's one of the signs. So you got to pay attention. This is going to be rampant in the United States. So please pay attention. Take my advice. Another thing that you should be doing is reduce your exposure to the scrolling on social media, like X or FaceTime or TikTok. That's putting your brain in a passive mode. You want to put your brain in an active mode. Read a book, be active, talk a little bit slower. There's nothing wrong with talking slower. Someone's just speed talking. No, that's you want to be in control of your speech. All right, not too slow, but not rapid fire either. All right, in that mid range. It's really important. Be in control of your speech. And stay away from the like and All right, these are not just rhetoric techniques. But if you start seeing an individual talking like all the time, or all the time, you're going to start. This is the beginnings of the cognitive decline, especially if they're like 40 years of age or older. So please go to my store, law-studio-reykjavik.com. Let's play CNBC when they were interviewing Bassett.
You need to tweak an asset without messing everything up. Luckily, there's Adobe Express. Create assets that fit in with your entire campaign, so you can make what you need when you need it. Now, you can move faster while staying on.
The so-called big beautiful bill facing a final House approval vote in the coming hours. Joining us now is Treasury Secretary Scott, Beth, and Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for joining us. We're going on more than 6 hours now where Minority Leader Jeffries is speaking. What are you hearing? What's your expectation for when and whether this could pass?
Well, it's gonna pass, and my expectation is that we'll get a vote around 1:30 today.
Got it. You have said that this isn't a drag on the deficit, despite the fact that CBO has scored it pretty aggressively, that it will add $1 trillion to our public debt. You've told me before, and you've told everyone that you're a fiscal hawk. So how do you square that? That's a key question
Well,
I think that they're asking on Wall Street.
Yeah, well, I square it with, I don't believe in the CBO forecast. So let's just look at common sense, and logic that if the bill, for some reason hadn't passed, we would have the biggest tax hike in history, and the CBO would say we're going to grow at 1.8%. We're going to make expensing and for structures and equipment permanent, and we are going to have the biggest tax cut in history. And the CBO is still saying we're only grow at 1.8%. So if you turn up the growth projections to something like 2.83%, which was achieved during President Trump's first term, then the debt disappears. The other thing too is, are we growing the GDP faster than we're growing the debt, which I am sure will happen over the remainder of the president's term.
We've been talking to economists about the GDP, because I know that's what you're saying, is that they're underplaying how much this could add to economic growth, and therefore that'll help with the debt picture. We've been asking economists about it. Hard to see a 3% number on most Wall Street forecasts right now. How do you get there? Because I get deregulation is going to help, and I get there's some stimulus here, and the clarity will be helpful, but then there's also tariffs, which could hurt.
Well, then let's think about this. You can't have it both ways. If tariff's going to hurt the economy, then we're going to pick up. According to CBO, if you want to take CBO scoring over the 10-year window, we pick up 2.8 trillion in revenue. And what we've seen so far is that tariffs haven't hurt. The dog that didn't bark was the tariffs going to hurt the economy. We're going to hurt the market. Market had the fastest recovery ever from the low in April, from a 15% decline, and we're at new highs in the market. So I've made my career on listening to the market, not Wall Street economists. So I'm going to stick with what the market's telling me.
Mr. Secretary, it's great to be with you today. And I was just saying, the market's at all-time highs, and perhaps even more insightfully, the bond market's very, very calm as we sit here now. And does that not even indicate to you that you could push the deficit more if you wanted to? I mean, America's probably the only country in the world that could be talking about a 5 or 6 or 7%, even if it's only in the short-term deficit, and see bond markets as calm as they are.
Well, unlike the previous administration, we don't see the need to do that, because we think that we can get private sector growth going. And President Trump's agenda, as I said many times, is a three-legged stool. So it's trade, it's tax. So we're going to complete the tax today when the House votes, and then the president will sign it tomorrow. And I think the permanence and the stimulus from that, and then an important part is deregulation. That is slower moving, and I think those are going to kick in.
This video was made yesterday, so the bill did pass, and it should be signed today by Trump. I'm not sure what time today, as of this recording. He has not signed it.
That's completely wrong. Have you called him to tell him that he's campaigning on the wrong issue on this bill?
As I've said in the past, I have great respect for Elon and rockets. I will leave that to him. He can leave the finances to me.
Okay. Well, you mentioned the other leg of the stool, which is trade, very much in focus now. On the framework that President Trump announced on Vietnam yesterday, I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit more about that. Has Vietnam agreed to it? And those 20% tariffs, where they send it over to us, is that on top of the 10% tariffs that we already have?
It's not stacked on top of the 10%. That's the reciprocal rate.
Right, so this would just be 20% tariffs, that with goods coming from Vietnam into the US as part of this deal?
Yes.
And is the deal finalized?
I haven't spoke to Jameson Greer, who's heading the team. My understanding is that it's finalized in principle.
I guess the question is so far we've had some responses from retail, from the Footwear Association. They manufacture a lot in Vietnam, in part because the last Trump administration got them to ship out of China into Vietnam. That's going to be a higher cost of doing business for them to bring that product into the US.
Well, look, we've seen that a huge amount of the trade that comes from Vietnam is what's called transshipment from China. So we'll see what happens with the transshipment, and the businesses have already adjusted to a 10% tariff. So we'll see what happens with the additional 10. But thus far, we haven't seen
What is
any
interesting?
inflation.
What is interesting about this is that, from my perspective, I think that the Vietnam trade agreement is the conduit for China to kind of move some of its manufacturing capability into Vietnam and then ship it to the United States to circumvent the higher tariff between the United States and China. So Vietnam is the conduit.
Tariffs, and again, I would say that tariffs are not inflationary. You could get a one-time price bump, but in terms of a generalized economic inflation, I don't think that tariffs cause that.
But it has to come from somewhere. I mean, are you expecting to see it then in their margins, margin pressure on US corporates, especially retailers that import all this stuff?
Well, why couldn't it come from the producers in Vietnam who want to keep market share?
So you think that's what's happening?
We're not a traditional cafe. We're completely unconventional. And my website really has to capture the same magic.
So you think that's what's happening? They're negotiating with their suppliers?
I think they're negotiating with their suppliers. I think many of the apparel companies, their margins became abnormally high during COVID. So maybe one thought is we'll see a normalization there.
What about other trade deals, Mr. Secretary? Because we're getting close to that July 9th deadline on Wednesday. Are we going to see more of these type of deals between now and then?
We are. Of course, everyone waits till the last minute. They think that they can get the best deal. And as I've warned when I've done other media, these countries should be careful because their rate could boomerang back to their April 2nd rate.
On that note, Mr. Secretary, the EU Commissioner Chief Ursula von der Leyen tweeted earlier saying that we're ready for a deal. Should we expect the EU deal to get over the line by Wednesday?
We'll see. Again, I'm not going to get out in front of the president. It'll be his decision. I did meet with my EU trade counterpart this morning. Ambassador Greer will be working diligently over the weekend. So we'll see what we can do.
Okay, as of this recording, there is a news announcement. The U.S. plans to curb shipments of AI chips to Malaysia and Thailand in a bid to crack down on suspected smuggling into China.
The European Union.
So it sounds like that's suggesting that one's in a better place than, say, Japan. We will obviously follow the president's posts on Japan over the course of the last few days.
Look, Japan are great allies, and they are in a tough spot right now. They have an upper house election on July 20th, which I think gives them a lot of domestic constraints in terms of doing a deal. So we'll see where the Japanese deal goes.
I just want to follow up on something you just said. You said that otherwise it'll revert back to the Liberation Day tariffs, which were very high. So is that what's going to happen if there aren't trade deals in place? I think previously you've said that as long as they're negotiating in good faith, the 10% sort of, will carry over? You'll extend that kind of deadline? What's your latest thinking here?
My latest thing is we're gonna do what the president wants, and he'll be the one to determine whether they're negotiating in good faith. So I'm not gonna give people a 10% extension on national TV when they should try to get it across the finish line.
On international TV, no less, and
Global TV.
exactly, and no doubt being watched in EU capitals, in Asian capitals, because the deadline's looming. I'm really interested on the baseline and what people might expect long term if everything goes to plan over the next 2 weeks. Obviously, we've got two numbers we can focus on: 20% Vietnam, 10% that you did with the UK. Is the UK only got 10% because they were early, because they came with love and friendship? What is the EU or Japan, if they agree to all the terms, is it more likely to be splitting the difference between those two numbers, or what?
Again, I'm not going to talk about the deals on intergalactic television, but the UK came to the front of the line. Very good deals. I'll tell you, they negotiated very, very well for the British people, and I think both sides thought that it was an excellent deal.
Let's talk about the jobs report, because we got a pretty positive report, at least on the headline number. Unemployment rate goes down to 4.1%. You have been flagging the wages for blue collar workers. You know, a lot of people didn't expect to see that at this time in the cycle, with the Fed being restrictive, with the tariffs in place. What do you think is leading to the resilience in the job market? And do you have any concern about what's under the surface there as far as where those jobs were created?
Well, a lot of the jobs were created by state and local government. And yeah, again, in my previous life, part of my job, part of my team's job was to take apart the economic data. And yeah, I can tell you, any 1 month is very noisy. I thought overall it was a good number, but a lot of the numbers like this can depend on when were teachers hired, when did they come off the payroll. So, but I would say the overall trend is good. But what I'm really focused on is once the president signs the one big beautiful bill tomorrow, the acceleration that I think we're going to see right out of the gate here in terms of the private sector. When I go around the country, the CEOs come into Treasury to see me. They've all been held captive by a lack of certainty on this tax bill. And now that they know that they can have 100% full expensing on equipment and for factories, I think we are going to see things take off between now and Labor Day.
So in the job market in particular?
Yeah, I totally agree with it. They're going to. I totally agree with it. They're going to try to take advantage of the tax incentives to reboot manufacturing in the United States. That's going to be a major boost in GDP. That's going to be a major boost in labor and in productivity. So this is why I'm saying we're already at an all-time high for the S&P 500 index. We're probably going to hit 6,800 or over 7,000 this year. Now, that's assuming that the tariff agreements don't, nuke the world, and the Ayatollah doesn't nuke the world literally. But barring that, I think we're going to see a much more elevated S&P 500, and that's going to create a wealth effect that will lead with a more robust economy. And I think the way that the Trump administration played this is perfect, because as the economy starts to become more robust and manufacturing starts to invest in machinery and capability, it's going to carry on into 2026. And that is going to, the economic data is going to show, hopefully, being robust. So when it goes towards the midterm elections in November of 2026, the Republican Party is still going to maintain the House and the Senate. As long as the economy is robust, the Republican Party will continue to control the legislative branch. Very important.
In the CapEx market, which leads to the job market. So, it'll initially be construction jobs, and then that we will see the workers come in to fill those new plants.
The market is taking it as reduced likelihood that the Federal Reserve would cut interest rates as soon as July, looking more toward the fall, because the feeling is that the economy is in good shape, jobs are still in a healthy place. Why don't they wait to see whether the tariffs are going to be inflationary this summer? Why is that not a prudent approach for the Fed?
I just look at the Fed's previous models, and based on their previous models, they would have already cut. So we'll see if they want to make a mistake here and not cut, then that's fine. We are at very high real rates here, but again, it's their decision, and I just think if they don't cut, then perhaps the cut in September will be bigger.
Mr. Secretary, it's really interesting that you say
NYU Langone Health maintains the lowest mortality rates in the nation, which means that more patients who come here go home.
Mr. Secretary, it's really interesting that you say if they want to make a mistake, your framing of it, that's fine. I guess it shows a different scale of you towards commenting on Fed policy between you and the president, in that you're kind of leaving it up to them. You think it's fine, it's up to them. Do you ever regret the extent of Mr. President, of the president's commentary towards Jay Powell?
Not at all. The president is the most economically sophisticated president, certainly for 100 years, perhaps in history. And he has been quite right in his commentary on the Fed during the previous 4 years. And again, I think that the statement that Chair Powell made from the conference in Europe, where he said, well, we would have cut if it weren't for tariffs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why Team Transitory thought that the gigantic fiscal spend coupled with added regulation would not cause inflation, and somehow that tariffs, which haven't caused inflation, and if they were to cause a one-time price adjustment, nothing's more transitory than that. But again, as I've said, I'm going to try to stick to mistakes they've made in the past, which in 2022 was huge. And as I've said before, medical studies have shown people who fall down tend to look at their feet. You look at your feet, you fall down more often, and I got a feeling they're still looking at their feet from 2022.
Yeah, fighting the last war, as we've seen with regulators. So do you think that they're being political? Do you think that Chair Powell is political?
Yes.
I think that it's a vote of the FOMC, the voting members. So
I mean, really, think about what happened during the Biden administration. Chairman Powell from the Federal Reserve wasn't willing to increase rates when there was adequate evidence to suggest that there was inflation because of the overspending by the Democratic Party. And they called it transitory. And even Janet Yellen said transitory. And then not only that, when they found out that they were reading the data wrong, or they weren't willing to admit to sticky inflation, they raised rates too slowly. And so it seems as though Chairman Powell was very biased towards the Democratic Party. And he seems very biased towards, against the Republican Party or against Trump. So Chairman Powell, I think, is a complete failure. Now, if you compare the last 4 chairmen for the Federal Reserve, Greenspan, Bernanke, Janet Yellen, and Powell. Powell and Yellen were like junior league compared to Greenspan and Bernanke. I mean, I just sense an incompetence, or just a bias towards the Democratic Party. I'm not sure if it's both, or it's just that they're so biased that they're willing to have policy to be more in line with the Democratic Party than the Republican Party. That could be, or a little bit of both. But I think they were terrible chairwoman, right? So Basson is right. You know, there's just seems like, well, if it was transitory then, if the big expenditure from the Democratic Party and the bills that were pushed through and signed by Biden or auto-penned, who knows, and that was transitory, yet everything that Trump does is it has to be inflationary, and it didn't even come in as inflationary. The data doesn't show it. Now, a lot of economists are saying, well, wait until the third or fourth quarter of this year and it'll show in the data. It might show a little bit of a tick up. I don't think it's going to show a major tick up. And especially with the wealth effect that's happening with the S&P 500, with the stock market, I think we're actually moving in a really positive direction. And as long as things continue into this direction and we have a robust economy, especially in manufacturing, the Republican Party will maintain power in the legislative branch through the midterm election of 2026.
Seems to be a big dispersion in the so-called dot plot, the summary of economic projections between the Trump appointees and the non-Trump appointees. I'll let you read into that what you want.
No, I pointed it out before. Waller and Bowman pushing for a July cut. So, you know, your name gets floated out there. You have some odds on Polymarket of being the next Fed chair. Can you be a Fed chair and a Treasury Secretary at the same time?
Well, I think it hasn't been done since 1930 something, and I'm very happy in my job here. I think we have lots of good candidates for Fed chair. We will start working on that in the fall. We've been busy. The president's been doing peace deals, trade deals, tax deals, and we are landing the plane on all of those. So we're going to have more bandwidth after Labor Day.
That was not a no. I just want to point out on the double job. Very interesting. Secretary Basson, thank you for the time today.
Good to see you.
Happy 4th of July.
Yeah, what looks to be a historic one.
Looking for a solution to your disjointed and siloed IT workflows? Ninja wants.
The Beltway Brief author, and Joe Borelli, former New York City minority leader and managing director of Cottrell Strategy Group. So, Joe, I think it's really important to point out that Mamdani is saying that he wants to globalize the Intifada, which means blowing up cafes, buses, concerts. And we've seen this violent movement occurring in New York City on campuses like Columbia, for example. And yet this is something that he endorses. And he talks about the NYPD working with the IDF. Well, they partner on counterterrorism measures, and yet he wants to get rid of that partnership in New York City.
Yeah, as you said, the reason why the NYPD has a partnership with the IDF is because there are repeatedly threats to Jewish institutions, not Israeli, right? Anti-Israel often takes the form of anti-Semitism. But we have a serious threat against Jewish institutions in this city. And if it was not for smart leadership in the NYPD, who has partnerships with the IDF, God knows what could have happened elsewhere. The problem with Zohar Mamdani is not that he is, just anti-Israel. It's that, as the CNN pollster Harry Enton just pointed out, the Democratic Party has adopted this mantra against Jewish New Yorkers and Jewish Americans. And it's unfortunate that he was rewarded with this primary win.
So the president, Chris, has noticed this rhetoric by this mayoral candidate and has threatened to take him on. He said he's going to save New York City, which of course is his home city, from a communist lunatic. This is what he said on True Social. He said, as president of the United States, I'm not going to let this communist lunatic destroy New York. Rest assured, I hold all the levers and have all the cards. I'll save New York City and make it hot and great again, just like I did with the good
old USA, and Mamdani is saying that, basically his threats to arrest him are based on race and other things.
Well, the threats to arrest him are just fun trolling. We currently have the funniest president we'll ever have in our entire lives. Kind of like how when Democrats.
We need to look back at some of the literature by Ayn Rand, especially through Atlas Shrugged, and start creating a movement in the United States and start asking questions and directed towards socialists and directed towards those communists and say, where's John Galt? Where's John Galt? Because we are at a crossroads in the United States between collectivism and individualism. And this country is great because of individualism, not collectivism. Collectivism will destroy this country. And the socialists and the communists like Mamdani are collectivists. And we need to take a page from Ayn Rand and learn from it. We need to listen to her warning. And her warning was this: do not let collectivism take hold, because it will destroy your constitutional freedoms. So it is time to stand up, push back, and say, where's John Galt?
Stop talking about immigration and illegal immigration after LA. Trump opened up Alligator Alcatraz. Like, oh, you're going to talk about it now. But the federal government does have a lot of power over local and state powers. We know this because Democrats have fought repeatedly over and over again. And won cases in courts with Democrat sympathetic judges that have allowed people like President Barack Obama and President Joe Biden to exercise an incredible amount of control, investigating police departments that are actually protecting the civil rights of people, investigating universities. We've seen this go on with the Trump administration to great effect. The ability that Joe Biden showed us to investigate the mayor of New York. If you want to find someone doing something illegal, just send an investigation team. They'll find it.
Right. Yeah, so Joe, politically, Democrats are having a hard time finding their footing after losing in November nationally. And now you're seeing these.
Before we continue, please go to my store, villa-studio-reykjavik.com. No matter what the season is, if you have an irritation in your throat, it's important to take the lozenges and the drops that I have on my store to mitigate that irritation. You want to do that right away to help to prevent further problems. Now, I have in stock elderberry zinc in the 21 count, get a few bags for your household. And I also have drops which are smaller in 100 count. You can get it in honey and lemon, in cherry, and also in blueberry. Get the drops and the lozenges, get a few bags for your household and for work. You never know when you need it. The moment you have that irritation, no matter what the season is, take it right away to mitigate the problem. Very important. And guess what? There's some rumor about, razor throat, right? So be prepared, because you're going to start hearing it all over the news in a few months. Be prepared.
Candidates like Mamdani pop up, and now he has support from the likes of David Cobb. But others like Stephen A. Smith are warning Democrats, if you take this part of the party and let them run the show, you're going to be in real trouble. Take a listen.
Let me be very, very clear. If the Democratic Party becomes the likes of Zoran Mamdani, who, by the way, I like, I'm not trying to throw any shade on him or anything like that, but if the Democratic Party becomes him, you have no chance.
Seems like they're becoming him, Joe. That's where they're going.
Yeah, and we did see this just after his 2016 victory, where in big cities and progressive cities, there was a retrenchment of the wildest, furthest left Democrats. And I think that's what you're seeing play out again here in New York, most notably. Stephen A. Smith is correct. If the Democratic Party adopts the policies and politics of Zoran Mamdani, they will lose every race. I'll give the guy credit. He ran a very effective race, and he talked about issues that matter to voters. The problem is the solutions, quote unquote, that he has for these issues only make New York City's problems worse and bring the city even more decay. It's an unfortunate death cycle that New York City is about to enter into, but we still do have a chance of beating him in the general election in November.
Well, Chris, it's not like we haven't seen these type of communist socialist policies implemented in big countries around the world, like Venezuela, for example. I mean, this is a serious issue, but it's always interesting when democratic socialists like Mamdani show up without a real record of actually doing much other than coming off as charismatic, doing some stuff on social media. I mean, when he was in office as an assemblyman, he missed a ton of votes when he was supposed to be in Albany, so he didn't even show up for that job.
Well, the Democrats aren't very good at governing. They're not good at governing any of the cities that they run. They have to struggle to govern some of the states, except for the capital and the finance that already exists in those states. A lot of the times that's actually fleeing. City after city after city is in serious trouble because they can't govern their way out of the back. They can't govern the DMV, which they have a lot of power in.
Yeah.
But this is something you're going to see with the Democratic Party going forward. The Chuck Schumers and Nancy Pelosi's are aging out. That poll's changed because people have aged out, and the young voters, they back this sort of thing.
And the Democratic Party, at least.
Yes.
I'm not sure overall. All right, Chris and Joe, thank you both so much.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the first pillar of my core protocol, and that is cleanse, max 14 or max 35. Cleanse is 30 parts per million. Take a teaspoon a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds, and then swallow it. Take a teaspoon a day to boost up that immune system. If you're not feeling well, take a tablespoon or two a day, and then go back to your maintenance dose once you feel better. Another great product that I have.
Here they go. Yeah. Here they go.
Nothing is scripted on this show. Everything is half-assed. So, all right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotic. Probiotics and multivitamins are a foundational piece for your health protocol. Super important. Getting a probiotic, taking a good probiotic like this one, this is a powdered version, taking it every day will help with your gut biome, allow you to absorb your nutrients, reduce inflammation at the GI level. You're going to improve your immune system at the GI level. Your mucosal lining will get thicker. The concentration of IgA, which is an antibody, will improve for your gut. That's really important. Your metabolism will improve. Your communication between your gut and your liver will improve. The communication between your gut and your brain will improve. Your skin will improve. Now, for brain function, you're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to be able to have less brain fog. You're going to be able to concentrate better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. Super important to take every day. That's a very strong foundational piece for your health protocol. Now let's talk about cardiovascular health. Many people in the United States have problems with their cardiovascular health. Now, taking omega-3 will help to reduce overclotting of red blood cells. Super important. Omega-3 will also bring down systemic inflammation, and omega-3 will help to control your lipid profile. They'll help to bring down LDL and increase your HDL levels. So when you have less LDL, you have less oxidized LDL, and that would mean that you have less plaque buildup. So taking omega-3 is super important for vascular health. I partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we've developed deodorant bars that are dual purpose. These deodorant bars you use as a deodorant, but it also helps to detoxify your body every day. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or in citrus. Go to my store, get the bars. It's for males and females. It has no aluminum, no baking soda. It's dual purpose. Get a few bars for your household. Help support the work I do and help support your health. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas, all natural. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Very high quality deodorants. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All right, let's go to Victor Hansen about Mamdani.
You need to localize assets without messing everything up. Luckily, there's Adobe Express. Now you can localize, translate, and resize your content easily, whenever you need.
I'd like to talk about the dream house of Zoran Mamdani. He was the successful Democratic Socialist candidate in the first round of the recent New York mayoral elections. What's funny about Mamdani is almost everything he said is a contradiction or not true. He says he's not a communist. Okay, he's a democratic socialist. He says that the key to any socialist revolution is to seize or get the means of production. That's right out of Marx's Das Kapital. So he's quoting communist dogma as a mechanism to gain political power. He said he was going to go after affluent and whiter areas of New York. He has been a child of privilege. So most of his message is incoherent. Hello, this is Victor Davis Hanson.
Say it with me. Where's John Galt? We have to fight against collectivism because Americana is all about individualism.
For the Daily Signal, I'd like to talk about the dream house of Zoran Mamdani. He was the successful Democratic Socialist candidate in the first round of the recent New York mayoral elections. He was a beneficiary of two phenomena that might suggest he has a 50-50 chance, more or less, to win the general election. Number one, in the primaries, it's ranked voting, and people can vote for various candidates. And traditionally, that means in that cumbersome process that outliers are minority candidates, minority in the sense that they're not a member of either of the major parties, have an advantage. And number two, while he was very preeminent as the hard left favorite, the conservative side split the vote between Mr. former Governor Cuomo, Mr. Silwa, who's a perennial candidate, and of course the incumbent mayor, Eric Adams. So we're looking at the general election. But what's funny about Mamdani is almost everything he says is a contradiction or not true. Now that he is the front runner, everybody is going back over his record and asking him questions. Did you say you want to defund the police? Once the police were refunded under Eric Adams, the crime rate has gone down. And he said, no, I didn't say that. And then it's become an internet phenomenon listing all the times he did say that. He said that he wished that billionaires didn't exist. Does that mean that he wouldn't want George Soros to fund the Get Out the Vote groups and the activists who are actively supporting him? Will he come out and say, George Soros, I wish that you didn't exist? He says he's not a communist. Okay, he's a democratic socialist, but he says that the key to any socialist revolution, quote, is to seize or get the means of production. That's right out of Marx's Das Kapital. So he's quoting communist dogma as a mechanism to gain political power. He says he has a new agenda, a new initiative, a new policy, turn the page in New York. But when you actually look at what he's advocating, they're very old. He says he wants to have government-owned food markets, grocery stores. I think any of us who went to school in the 1970s and college knew that in every major university town, whether it was Berkeley or Palo Alto in California or Santa Cruz, there was a co-op. And the co-ops.
Welcome to civilization to nation.
And the co-op's advertisement was, we don't make a profit. But my remembrance of those co-ops were they didn't last very long. They eventually went broke. The produce was no better than Safeway or Rayleigh's or Food for Less or Save Mart or any of the competitors. So that is not new. Giving free.
It's really simple. It's really simple. Margins at a grocery store are only at 1.6%, maybe 2% margin. The city would still have to purchase the food at wholesale prices. If they're selling at wholesale, how are they really going to bring down the price of food if it's only bringing it down by 1.6%? It will fail. This concept will fail. All it is centralized government. That Mamdani is focusing on centralized government. If you're really concerned about making sure that people have adequate food that need it, that are, you know, in the low income of the spectrum in the society, help the food pantries through the nonprofit organizations. There are a lot of food pantries in New York. So why doesn't he just work with the nonprofits and use a philanthropic aspect to it instead of having the government come in and try to control it? It'll be more costly, and and not only that, your optionality for food will go down, and you can't bring down the price that much, because if you bring down the price more than the actual markup of typical grocery stores, which is about 1.6 to 2%, if you're bringing the price down below or you know more than 2%, then you're selling the food below cost, and you're taking taxpayer money to do it. So the taxpayer money is what allows this to happen. So you get less optionality, you get government control, and then you're waiting in line because people are trying to get a cheaper good. So it's less efficient. How do you bring down the price of groceries if the markup is only 1.6%? That is a huge issue. It won't work. And then he kind of sort of admits that it won't work, because he goes, I have this great idea, but we're going to have to test it out to see if it works. Well, then don't have the great idea during your campaign, because it probably will fail. Why? Because other countries have tried this, and these co-ops that Hanson's talking about failed too. So it failed in the United States, it failed in Soviet Union, it failed in socialistic societies. It won't work. The only way for this to happen is to allow for a free market to emerge. The invisible hand of Adam Smith. Adam Smith's invisible hand of the economy is how it all works. It can't be centralized. It won't work. How do you bring down groceries? People are complaining about 33% increases in groceries on some items. All right? How are you going to bring that down if you still have to buy at wholesale price? If the government has to buy at wholesale price, and let's just say sell it at wholesale price, it's not going to go down more than 1.6 or 2%. Unless they sell it at a loss. And who is subsidizing the loss? Your tax-paying dollars. It will fail. It will fail. Socialism fails. Now, the sad thing is that you have a lot of young people buying into this because they don't have experience. They're not even being told in school about Adam Smith or 1984 or Atlas Shrugged. They're not taught this. They're not taught that the negative externalities of socialism and communism. No. So you have a younger generation that has these bright ideas and don't even know the history that they have failed in prior eras. Where's John Galt?
The mass transit. The problem we have right now is that people have free access to the subway. They jump the turnstiles. But imagine his plan that everybody de facto or de jure would jump the turnstile. So how is that going to be funded? He wants to have rent control. We know what rent control does. Once a landlord knows that he cannot raise his rent in accordance with what he thinks maintenance, insurance, tax expenses rise commiserately, then he cuts back. He doesn't improve the property, or he forces people to get out, et cetera, and you don't build new units. There's a couple of other things very quickly. I could go on with that list of things that he thinks that are quite new. But he said something very, I think, shocking. He said he was going to go after affluent and whiter areas of New York, as if they were synonymous. But if you look at per capita income in the United States based on ethnic affiliation, so-called whites are 17. Number one, Asians, the top 10 are Asian, but number one, Indian Americans, Mr. Mamdani's people. So what he should say, if he was intellectually honest, we're going to go after affluent people, and especially the most affluent people, my people, Indian Americans. And he didn't say that. And he didn't say that because he's trying to win minority votes. And he thinks he's going to lose to Eric Adams. A final note, he talks about arresting Benjamin Netanyahu. The pariah state of Israel is a colonial settler state. His family were colonists, or they were settlers, or they were immigrants into Black Africa, Uganda. And the Indian community represented in Uganda the top 1%. And they were the shopkeepers, the bankers, the merchants that ran Uganda, until many of them by Idi Amin were expelled. They went to South Africa, where the Indian African community was very prominent. And then they faced harassment for their success. And then he came to California. Then he came to the United States. What am I getting at? He should not call Israel a colonial settler presence, because that's exactly what his own family was. And he should be very sensitive to the powers of envy and popular discontent against the very wealthy, because after all, his father is a professor, very well compensated Columbia University professor. His mother is a multi-million-dollar successful filmmaker, and they represented the elite. And the powers of jealousy and envy pushed them out of their presence in Africa, and he came to the United States. So in this fantasy world of Mr. Mamdani, he's criticizing the very thing, the very issues, the very policy that made him, whether it's his parents coming here or what they did in Africa, or his private school, or his prestigious prep school. He has been a child of privilege. And so most of his message, to finish, is incoherent. This is Victor Davis Hanson for the Daily Statement. Thank you for tuning in to the.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and let's celebrate capitalism. If you follow my lead, you're going to slow down the aging process and get healthy. Get magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc is a dual-purpose supplement. It'll help to boost up your immune system. Magnesium helps with brain function. Magnesium also increases the efficacy of D3, vitamin D3. So take magnesium every day. Drink it with filtered water. Also take vitamin C and magnesium. Vitamin C helps with your skin, but vitamin C and magnesium also helps with your immune system. And again, magnesium increases the efficacy of vitamin D3 and helps with your brain function. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, stack the magnesium and zinc and the vitamin C and magnesium, boost up your brain function and help with your immune system and improve your skin. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Get the great structural nano silver soaps that I have. You can get it in lavender, you can get it in peppermint, so you don't smell like Mamdani. Also, you can get lemongrass or charcoal tea tree. Very high quality structural nano silver soaps. Get a few bars for your household and help with your health and wellness and help support the work that I do. And lastly, the gel. Get the gel. You can get it in the tube form or in the quick dispenser form. Have it in your backpack, have it at home, have it at work. You never know when you need it. It's dual purpose. If you have a cut, put it on the cut, it'll help to heal it. If you have a minor burn, put it on there, it'll help to heal it. You can use it as a daily skincare. You can use it as an aftershave. If you're not feeling well, or someone around you is not feeling well, put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your nose, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils. It stays active for 5.5 hours. You're gonna need this, trust me. So make sure you have it at home or at work. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the gel. Very high quality. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and celebrate capitalism.
What if you can create your own website by saying, this is what I want? With Wix, you can.
Captain's here to talk about it. Who better? Former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, joins me now. 6 months ago in January, Newt, you said this bill needs to be done no later than July 4th. It appears President Trump will get it done. It's been a painful process, but this is another huge win for the president and his promised agenda, right?
Sure, and look, as the president goes tonight to Des Moines to the Iowa State Fairgrounds to launch the 250th anniversary celebration, remember, this is the constitutional process. You have to get 100 senators, 435 House members, and the president to get something done. It is sloppy, slow, frustrating, and it's called freedom because it protects us from any dictatorship. So the president will win today. I think the country will win today. Mike Johnson has done an amazing job. John Thune, as Senate leader, did an amazing job. I was more concerned that the Senate could move fast enough that he got it done. I knew that once they got to the House, that Speaker Johnson and President Trump would ultimately find the votes. It took them probably a day longer than they hoped. But in a few minutes, we're going to see the biggest single domestic policy change of the Trump administration will be passed into law.
Well, the fear mongering on the other side, Newt, I mean, we know it, we expect it, but, you know, I was just writing down some of the comments. Less safe, less healthy, more debt ridden. It's a deal with the devil. It's cruel, ugly, nasty, and immoral. Your comments on that?
Well, look, I think the Democrats are trapped. They have a whole bunch of policies they inherited from Biden, which they can't sustain. They have a new face, the Democratic Party, emerging in New York with Mamdani. They are in a situation where they have no solutions, they have no answers. Their social values are like in 15 to 20% of Americans in favor of them. Interestingly, since the election, there's been 1,300,000 people switch from Democrat to Republican in registration around the country. Every single state is moving towards the Republicans. So what do? They put up Hakeem Jeffries to pretend he's a senator. He gives what will be one of maybe the second or third longest speech in House history. And he just says a whole series of lies. I mean, it takes a long time to lie. You can tell the truth pretty quickly.
Do you ever remember a president being this heavily involved in getting a bill passed? I mean, it was remarkable.
Well, I think other presidents have been involved, but I think that the amazing thing about President Trump is he can be doing Iran, going to NATO, dealing with the Supreme Court, all simultaneously, while also shepherding this bill. And people need to understand, this is a huge bill. This bill fundamentally shifts towards a lower tax, more aggressive, more entrepreneurial America. It takes a lot of regulations out, and it's, I think, going to launch what by next summer we'll be calling the Trump boom, because the combination of all of his economic policies are going to lead to huge economic growth.
It's all about growth, indeed. Newt Gingrich, Newt, thank you so much for joining us on this Thursday. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Guess which student has a better chance of getting...
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen is a dual-purpose supplement. It's a powder. You take it every day. It has a very comprehensive amino acid profile shown on the screen. You can read the label on my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. You get a big scooper, take it once a day, mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even milk. But take it every day. It'll help with your skin, your hair, your nails, your joints, your musculature, your bones, helps with bone density if you're doing the resistance training, and collagen will help with your cartilage. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. It cross-links with vitamin C if you drink about 32 to 64 ounces of water to improve the dermal layer. Really important to take. You do that every day, and you do the resistance training, you're going to notice that you're slowing down the aging process. Olive leaf extract, dual purpose, helps with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. It brings down inflammation, and it helps to control your lipid profile. It helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So please get the olive leaf extract, take it every day, help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system. If you're age 40 or older, you need to take care of your pancreas. Get the digestive enzyme complex that'll help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. Reduce the load on your pancreas so you can absorb your nutrients. And by doing that, you're reducing that inflammatory response on your pancreas, right? If your pancreas just isn't working as well. When we get older, our pancreas doesn't work as well as when we were younger, no matter how in shape and healthy you are, all right? So you just have to nurse your pancreas a little bit. Take the digestive enzyme complex. Again, this will help to break up the carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids. It also has bromelain in it, which is fibrinolytic, which helps to break up clots. It has proteolytic enzymes to break up glycoproteins. Super important, especially during the 2020 era. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. So a great stack would be help your pancreas with the digestive enzyme complex, olive leaf extract to help with your immune system and your cardiovascular system, and collagen to help with your skin, your hair, your nails, your musculature, your joints, and your bones. This is a great stack right here. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
It's one of the weeks to talk about favourite person in the world, the one, the only, the amazing Megan Kelly. Megan, lovely to see you, mate. Happy summer wherever you are right now. You enjoying the rays?
Yeah. Yes, it's actually quite beautiful here on the east coast of the United States at this time of year. I apologize because I know you're not experiencing that at the moment, but here, yes, the sun is out. Finally, the humidity is here, which is great. I'm the one person for whom that's a good thing for my hair because I have toddler hair, so it actually just looks a little bit more body in the humidity. Anyway, life is good.
Body and bounce, we love it. It's something we're very committed to on this program. We know there was no better moment than the past few days, and of course, when the world was teetering on the brink of World War III, and the president, on his way to the helicopter to deal with the world's problems, drops the F-bomb, and that became part of the story. Well, one of the stories today is that the president is going to the alligator Alcatraz, but we can't talk about that yet because on his way to the helicopter, to go to the plane, to go to alligator Alcatraz, he has a little bit to say about his former mate, who, remember, I think even rented property in Mar-a-Lago, Elon Musk, suggesting he may deport him.
He's upset that he's losing his EV mandate, and he's very upset about things, but you know, he could lose a lot more than that. Those is the monsters that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
This will never happen, but thoughts, Megan?
Mom and dad are fighting again. It's always uncomfortable for the children. You don't want to witness it. You want it done behind closed doors where they can work things out quietly. Elon hates the big, beautiful bill. I'm sure he genuinely, sincerely hates it. It does, like on its papers, increase the deficit by some $3 trillion over 10 years. Trump doesn't believe that. And I understand he's actually got a very colorable argument, which is that this thing is going to unleash such growth and prosperity in America that's not accounted for. The growth is not factored in at all by these number crunchers who simply look at what are the outlays and what are the expected incomes when it comes to taxing people. It doesn't factor in growth. So Trump is trying to say, you know, you're misjudging it. And I think he genuinely believes that. Elon doesn't like spending. He's been, of course, on Doge trying to stop too much government spending. And let's face it, Elon also doesn't like the fact that these green energy subsidies are being taken away. This was all in what Trump calls the Green New Scam. It was Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, which was really just a green energy bill offering these subsidies for wind power and solar power and EVs to try to make people convert to this kind of energy, which we hate. I'm sorry, but we hate. Wind energy is a joke. It sucks. And all those wind turbines all over our beautiful oceans are killing whales. There's all sorts of evidence that it's really causing massive problems, not to mention they're unsightly, they're ugly, they're ruining some of the most beautiful coastlines in America. So people don't want this. The only way they buy these energy programs is if they're subsidized by their fellow taxpayers. And Trump is saying in this big, beautiful bill, that's one of the things that's going. I'm going to create no taxes on tips for waiters and waitresses. I'm going to do no taxes on overtime for the working class, no taxes on Social Security for the elderly. But something's got to give. Otherwise, we really will run up the deficit. And what I want to give, among other things, is I'm done subsidizing these loser industries. We're capitalists. Either you make it on your own or you're done. Sorry, that's the way life works. But Elon has a massive presence in the EV industry, and I think possibly the solar industry as well, and very much objects to this. And so Trump, so he's been very critical, and now he's resumed his talk of creating a third party. And also on Monday, he said he was going to primary anyone who votes for this thing, which means literally every Republican.
I'm a capitalist, for sure, all right? But I'm concerned about billionaires becoming so wealthy, the uber rich, all right? Not just the wealthy, but the uber rich. They amass so much money that they can swing elections, create third parties, primary candidates, whatever. This is too much power, and that they need to be taxed at a higher rate. Now, the argument is don't tax the very wealthy. It doesn't really reduce the deficit or the debt by taxing the wealthy, because the debt's so high and the deficit's so high. That's not the point. The point is to tax the wealthy by a very large margin. I'm talking about the uber wealthy, not just the upper middle class. I'm talking about the uber wealthy, the Jeff Bezos and the Bill Gates and the Warren Buffett and, you know, the uber wealthy, the multi billionaires that have a lot of political power. You tax them at a very high rate, like 50%, maybe even 60%. Elon Musk, once he realizes his billions, will still be able to live on $200 billion, still be able to buy groceries, still be able to afford housing if he was taxed 50% of his $400 billion wealth. See, whenever they don't get what they want, they say, I'm going to start a third party. I'm going to primary all these candidates and blah, blah, blah. That's the point. Tax these individuals so they don't have as much money to be able to swing elections. Their voice, the uber wealthy, have a larger voice than you do. That's wrong. So you can be a capitalist and still tax the uber wealthy at a very high interest rate to reduce their power at the lobbying level.
Two in the Senate and virtually same in the House. And Trump's getting annoyed again. So he is talking about possibly deporting him and possibly sticking Doge on Elon's subsidies that he gets from the feds.
I've just got this image of, the ICE agents turning up and Elon's just, running like the billionaire towards his spacecraft to go up and just live above us. Just float around constantly as a intergalactic citizen with the president, waving every time it goes over. And look, for people outside of America trying to pull apart the detail inside the big, beautiful bill, but basically Trump went, look, we can do things bit by bit over 4 years. We'll do it all at once, take it or leave it. And that means there's a lot of unpleasant tasting sandwiches for people that would have opposed things, but putting it all together, we'll see what happens. There's vote-a-ramas happening right now in the US with him. desperately trying to get this thing done. But let's get to alligator Alcatraz. I don't know who came up with the name, but a bravo to the branding department. We all know what this means, which is I don't want to go there.
Right, exactly. Well, Trump's original idea was to reopen the actual Alcatraz, this prison, infamous prison off the coast of San Francisco, where we used to have some of our worst criminals. It was closed. There are all sorts of environmental problems out there. And Trump, in his sort of off-the-cuff way, was like, let's reopen that. We can send all the illegals and the worst of the worst out there. But that's a nightmare, and environmentally was never going to happen. And so I think he got off of that pretty quickly, stopped talking about it. And suddenly we had Alligator Alcatraz, which was a great name. And I heard my friends over at Real Clear Politics debating on whether it should instead be called Python Prison, because there's a lot of pythons down in this same region. I think Alligator Alcatraz is better. But yeah, either way, it could be like the subheading on a book, also known as. And that's where they want to put some of the worst illegals that we're rounding up here. Okay, like, all these Senator Chris Van Hollen, you don't want us to ship them off to El Salvador? How does Alligator Alcatraz sound to you? Ron DeSantis is an ally to the president, is totally on board. And this thing is supposed to be able to house some 5,000 of our worst offenders. So, cool.
I think it's brilliant. Honestly, just branding alone. That message will go to every single corner of everyone and make them even more afraid. And rightly so.
Just out of curiosity, as an Aussie, I've got to ask you, would you prefer to be confronted with a bunch of pythons while breaking out of a prison, or a bunch of alligators?
The reason I say alligator is what you should stick with is because sometimes, people that work out, they have pythons, big pythons, muscles. So that would sort of seem like, I don't know, there'd kind of be a strange energy coming out of the python prison. I think that's the place you can work out, right? But alligator, because obviously we've got crocodiles, they kick alligators' asses all day, no question, right? But I don't want to be mucking around with an alligator. Anytime you even see those things on a golf course, you want to run the other way, let alone thinking about, hey, Jose, do you want to jump over the fence? No. Why? There's alligators there.
That's right. And also remember this, if you ever get chased by one, run serpentine. You got to go left or right. Not a straight line.
See, this is officially education, right? So if that helps with everyone with their taxes, you've just had an education session at the University of Reality here. Now,
we're saving lives.
We are all day, every day. Before, of course, the potential new ultra left-wing communist, whatever, mayor of New York takes over. Now, I did a whole thing on the show last night that, as a person who just loves the city from the other side of the world, got married there to my beautiful bride, Sian, I want it to be amazing, right? You obviously used to live there. You know how great it can be. But if they choose this bloke, it goes down the toilet fast, quick. My thing is, the way to beat this guy is not to go on about the socialism, not to go on about some of the Middle East stuff. It's law and order. His policies on law and order are the same ones that result in you can take whatever you want from the shops. His government-funded grocery stores will be being looted as soon as you put the bread down. Somebody loots. But more importantly, close Rikers. Basically, unless you're caught shooting somebody in the head, you don't go to jail. So free stuff's great, but if somebody's going to steal it from you, it's not going to be a good idea. I think that's the only lane because, like it or not, he's got the look, he's got the talk, he's got the disruption. If you're somebody who's living in the poorer parts of the city, well, he's selling right to you, but not if it comes at the expense of cops getting killed.
I think that's very smart because, his radicalism on that front is extreme. He wants to defund the police, he wants to decarcerate the prisons, and he wants to take away everyone's guns, which is blatantly unconstitutional. But that's a scary platform that he's openly embracing. He's said this on camera, these things, and all over his Twitter feed, his X feed. So he is truly radical, and New Yorkers are definitely not for defund the police. They've lived that to some extent. We saw in the post-George Floyd world that they tried to defund the police to the tune of $1 billion. And New Yorkers rose up and said, we don't want that. In particular, New Yorkers who are in the poorer areas of the 5 boroughs, because they're the ones who are going to get hurt. The people who are on the Upper East Side in the doorman locked up buildings, they're not going to have to worry. It's the people who live in the Bronx and in the worst parts of Brooklyn and Queens that actually need cops. So I think you're right. This sort of white $100,000 a year contingent that put him at the top of the Democratic field is not large enough to propel him into the actual mayor's house. If these other groups get together, the Hispanic voters don't like him, the Black voters don't like him, the working class doesn't like him. So and by the way, the mega rich don't like him because of course he hates them. So there is a coalition to be had. The problem is it's very late in the game. It's not that easy to get on the ballot. Cuomo is not dynamic enough and they hate him. It's like you brought out a bunch of stinky, dirty underwear and you want us to vote for that instead of this guy who I can't stand, but I can't vote for the stinky, dirty underwear. It's not going to make me get out of my house on election day. So he's not the answer. Then you got Eric Adams, who's got a whole host of other problems. People don't want to vote for the corrupt guy. They know he's corrupt. He denies it. But I mean, it's obvious. Okay, whatever. They're not inspired by him, nor has he been a good mayor. He hasn't. You know, we kind of thought, okay, former cop, I guess he's like the least bad, but he hasn't been strong. New York still sucks under him. Bill de Blasio was another version, by the way, of this Mamdani guy. He was just as socialist as this man is. Then he ruined New York. He took it from a thriving metropolis that was the envy of the world and ruined it.
De Blasio was terrible, but I think Mamdani is way worse than de Blasio.
There for the entire time. So now we're going to double down on those problems. But in any event, Eric Adams is too flat-footed as a politician. He's not naturally gifted and too perceived as corrupt. And for some segment of Democrats, too in bed with the Trump administration, with whom he had to cut his deal on immigration in order to get those charges pulled. So I don't think he's the answer either. They've got to fight fire with fire. They need a young, dynamic.
You got to work with what you got. You can't just wish for something to happen, all right? The reality is that Adams is the only one to vote for to potentially stop Mamdani. So, you know, going, well, what if the world was perfect? Well, Kelly, the world isn't perfect. We got to work with what we got.
Seeing, I want to say zesty, but that now has a different meaning in the kids' brain rot. Anyway, but you know, somebody with a verb, you know, with sort of an energy that's going to like storm these synagogues and mosques and churches and town halls and say like, this guy's a nutcase. Let me bring New York back to its former glory. Then ideally, if this person could be a capitalist who understands the lifeblood of New York is the financial industry, and there is not a person within it who believes we should seize the means of production as a way of saving New York and the country, as this nutcase is saying, and then the law and order stuff, they could win. It's just logistically very challenging at this point.
You need to meet surging content demands without compromising your business or your brand. With Adobe Express, your global teams across marketing, sales, HR, and
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the most bioavailable form of CoQ10 that you can purchase. This will soak up free radicals, help with the health of your mitochondria, boost up your energy levels, and protect your neurons. Super important if you're age 40 or older to protect your neurons. Like I said, in 5 years, you're going to start noticing a lot of people having problems with their brain function. And there's 3 reasons why, and I have a video out there that explains it. Resveratrol. I've been taking resveratrol for decades. Resveratrol will soak up free radicals, help the health of the mitochondria, reduce this cellular stress, boost up those energy levels, help with youthful gene expression, and get rid of cells that need to go into senescence. Take resveratrol to get that youthful gene expression. You can stack it with ubiquinol. This is a good stack. Also, resveratrol stacks well with C60, NAD+, clarity factor. And this stack that I'm going to show you here is super important for your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Lignans will bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, boost up that immune system, and help with your endocrine system. Ashwagandha root will help you to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, bring down inflammation. Turmeric will bring down pro-inflammatory cytokines and help soak up free radicals. When you stack these together, you're controlling your blood glucose levels, you're controlling your cortisol, you're bringing down inflammation, you're helping your endocrine system, You're boosting up your immune system. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take this stack, boost up that immune system, help with the cardiovascular system, because by bringing down inflammation and soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're reducing plaque formation. This is a powerful stack. Please go to my store, get the turmeric, the lignans, and the ashwagandha. Super important. Do it every day. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more on an order, you get a free gift until supplies last.
Joining us right now for a conversation about real estate, local New York City, mayoral politics, and so much more. Our chairman and CEO, Scott Reckler. Good morning to you. I think we're all trying to figure out what's going on with the real estate market in New York City, but I think the overhang or overlay to all of this is what's just happened in this mayoral election. And I think a lot of people are surprised about it. And I know a lot of people in your business seem to be anxious about it. So what's your take?
I'm not really anxious about it, and I was surprised about it, but you gotta put it in perspective. There's really two things. One, Mamdani, he won the primary, right? And he was actually able to appeal to a very passionate, disenfranchised group that came out in big numbers. Now we have a general election, which is going to broaden the amount of people that actually vote in this election. And I think New Yorkers who come here for opportunity, that this is the capital of capitalism, I think, they're going to come out and say, I don't want a socialist for mayor. I think New York.
You think he's going to lose?
I think they win the general election. I think he's going to have a very hard time. Here's with a city that has more Jews in the world than anywhere else but Israel, and we have a mayoral candidate who basically has condoned anti-Semitic remarks and is anti-Israel. I don't think New Yorkers
He won almost 500,000 votes in the primary. In the last general election, only 1.1 million.
And I think this.
You think there's going to be a 2
I think what's going to happen. I think there'll be more passionate people that will come out for this election than they have in the past, because this is very different than what New Yorkers have had before.
Yeah, exactly. What's so interesting is you have basically white, wealthy voters in New York voting for him. So it's a very interesting dynamic.
Yeah, there's no doubt, but I think I think part of it was the nature of the campaign. And we've seen this, by the way, throughout the country, right? And I believe it, right? There's a level of disenfranchisement for a lot of young people. The cost of living has gotten way over the top here.
Right.
The widening inequalities. These are real issues, right? So I agree with his diagnosis, but I don't agree with his prescribed policy.
So I actually want to ask you about the prescribed policies for a second, because we were talking about this yesterday, and I've always said that I would love to make this city more affordable. I think everybody wants this city to be more affordable. By the way, there are a lot of cities that need to become more affordable.
Absolutely.
The question is, to your point, how do you get there?
Right.
I think it's building more. I think you just need a lot more buildings, which I assume means a lot more permitting, which means getting a lot of the red tape out of the way, allowing certain buildings that people don't want to go down to go down and go up, the whole thing.
That's right.
What is your prescription, given the business you're in? And how much could that actually change the dynamic?
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. Right. The way you deal with the housing shortage is you need to add more supply. And if you look around the country, places like Austin, Texas, you haven't seen the spike in rent that we have here. We have a 1.5% vacancy rate. You need to build, and you need to build at every level. You need to build for public housing, you need to young professional housing, luxury housing. And there's
the problem is that most people in your business would prefer right now, to the extent they can build at all, they want to build luxury housing.
Right, but and there's
a higher margin place.
There's good policies that can be put in place to change that, right? I mean, we might here the last time we talked about converting old office buildings to residential, right? And I had said that could be a 10 to 20 year problem unless public policy comes in and accelerates it. Well, the city of Yes and then the M467 legislation have now created tax incentives, expedited approvals, and what could have been that 10 to 20 year problem is a 5 to 10 year. And what could have been 10,000 to 20,000 units being done is probably going to be 20,000 to 40,000 units of converting office buildings. We're doing right around.
How many units do we need to genuinely change?
Is it low income housing?
Again, and this has been every study that's been done. When you build housing, it creates more housing for every level.
It's not low income.
It actually encourages 20% is low income housing.
What's low income housing? Because it
depends on the AMI.
800,000.
Right, it depends. Well, these are rentals, right? So it depends on it's a percentage of the income levels. But again, this goes back to your point, Andrew. The Minneapolis Fed put out a study, right? So that said that if you build housing, what happens at every income level, there's more housing. So people, they do
So
well,
from a
they
real
grow the
estate
next level.
perspective, you're saying, don't worry about low income housing, just build whatever.
No,
Luxury stuff.
I think you should incentivize,
Should help us.
I think you need to incentivize low income housing, and I think there's different policies and prescriptions for that, right? There's public housing, that you need a different set of policies to incentivize public housing than you do market rate housing. Market rate housing, you need to encourage to have some level of affordability within that market rate housing, which is.
And I think the description of affordability is really important too. Like I said, in my town, when they put in affordable housing, there were $1.1 million units. The affordable ones are $800,000. It's not really affordable.
Yeah, I agree. And this is a challenge, right, that New York has, right? And by the way, this is also us being a victim of our success. We're attracting the best and brightest people around the world. They want to be here, right? You talk to every major CEO, this is where they want to
So
be.
let me push on one thing, and it's probably the single question I've been asked by people around this whole election in the past week. They say, do you really believe that people will leave the city in droves that are high income earners or not if the taxes go up by 2%? That is a fundamental question. I won't tell you what the answer I've offered, but I'm curious what your answer actually is, given the other view, which are all posit, which is it's Mamdani's view, which is that people love the city just the way you say they love the city, and they're all coming here anyway. Right. You have 1.5% vacancy.
Right, and I think that, again, I'm not leaving the city, right, I'm here. I think on the fringes, you will lose some people that might leave the city, and we've seen that, right? And that if you think about, that it's basically our top 1% makes up 40% of our income taxes, so you gotta be sensitive.
Here's the problem, and I'm a capitalist, all right, but here's the problem. I think people at the upper income level and uber wealthy, all right, will look at it from if the taxes increase, they're going to leave, and if the crime increases, they'll leave, not or. All right. So if it's just crime increasing, they'll stay. If it's taxes just increasing, they'll stay. But the coupling of those two, there's going to be further flight out of the city. I think that's what's going to happen, and that most people are going to wait it out and look at that first year to see what will happen in terms of these socialistic policies. But if the indicators are showing that crime is increasing, taxes are increasing, the lifestyle of the city has declined, then people will leave. Now, in terms of affordable housing, this is not just a poor New York City resident issue. This is middle class and even upper middle class issue. Affordable housing it can be broken up into two ways, that how I'm going to parse this. Residential rentals or residential buys. All right. The problem is that to do an affordable residential buy, you're talking about $800,000 to $900,000. And so what happens is that these builders, they'll say, okay, we'll build 100 units in a building, in a skyscraper, let's just say 100 units. I'm just saying these numbers for just quick math. 100 units, 80% of them will be over $1 million. And as you go up in terms of the building, it's more expensive because you get a better view. All right. So higher the floor, more expensive. So let's say this building at the highest floors, it's over $2 million. The mid level, it is $1 million, $1.25 million. And then the lower levels will be 800,000. That's what these builders are doing in terms of affordable housing. So 20%, 20 units will be at the $800,000 or $900,000 level. 80% of the units, 80 units in this building, for example, will be over $1 million. Now, is that affordable? It doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem. So they're thinking, well, we'll be able to sell these units, and these other units that are already available will go down in price because there are people that are leaving and they're getting into these newer units, and therefore there'll be some sort of affordability in the older units, these older buildings. I'm not so sure about that. There will be some sort of price reduction. If, let's say, a unit was selling at a 1.2 million, it may go down to $1 million. But you're talking about mortgage payments of, to do this kind of thing, you're talking about mortgage payments of like $10,000 a month or more, plus a monthly fee of approximately $1,500. So a lot of people don't realize the monthly fee plus the mortgage payment doesn't allow for someone to be able to afford these condos for these residential buys. Now, on the other side of the spectrum are the residential rents. Now, these decent to, luxury level apartments could range from $4,000 to $7,000 a month. Is that affordable? Now, he said, well, we're bringing in the talent, we're creating talent that people, want to come and work with these companies, and, these younger people are coming to the city who, at the entry level coming out of college, can afford $7,000 a month, $4,000 a month, or a $10,000 mortgage and a $1,500 or $2,000 a month maintenance. Nobody. And this is the reason why the new college graduates, all right, are aligning with Mamdani, because they're saying the affordability in New York is out of control. You can't afford anything, especially if you're younger. So these builders need to realize you can't do this 80-20 bullshit anymore. If you get the city to sign off on your build, it needs to be the other way around. It needs to be like, instead of 80% for the wealthy and only 20% affordable, it should be more flipped. And it should be more like 20 for the uber wealthy and 80% that's for the affordable. But they won't do that. They'll say, well, we're not making enough money on it. So what it is that to build these, to build these new buildings, or even to convert these buildings, all right, they have to have some outlay. And let's say it's, hundreds of millions of dollars to do. All right. Let's say it's, I don't know, $400 million to renovate a building or whatever. All right. To get their investors, they have to say, okay, we're going to make X amount on every unit. All right. A certain amount for every unit to make up the cost of building it. And then also that profitability. So there's this markup. The problem is that markup is so large and it's hurting the affordability for the average person in New York. The average person can't afford an $800,000 place. A big part of it is because of the maintenance. They can't afford the $10,000 a month mortgage payment, but they can't afford, on top of that, the $1,500 maintenance. So this building, the building is making money. Not only are they selling units, the management company for the building, which is usually tied to the actual construction company, the builder, the developer, they have a managing company that's going to be managing the building, and they're making money per month on that. So the margins on these units are way too high. Now, I'm a capitalist, all right? But there needs to be a pushback on these developers where the number of affordable units increases. It's not an 80-20. And you don't get to build anything in the city unless you start having more percentage of your buildings to be affordable. And then bring the maintenance down. See, if you can attack that, if you can attack the maintenance to come down by half, and you can bring down the price of the units from 800,000 to 750,000 or 600,000, then you start having the affordability. Now, some of these developers are saying, well, we can do that. We'll just make it smaller so we can have more units in. So instead of having a 700 or 1,000 square foot condo buy, we'll turn it into 300 or 400 studio. And these are for the young individuals that would like to, purchase something at 500,000. Why would you buy something for $500,000 with a maintenance of $1,200 or $1,000 a month for only 350 square feet? This is the problem, and this is the reason why the young are gravitating to Mamdani. The fucking developers are making too much money on it. That's the problem. And the city can push back and say, you don't get the go-ahead for your build unless you change this ratio.
So
That's that
the
equal?
millionaires you're losing, that's a big
Right,
problem.
that's a big problem. But I also want to be a really important point that people have not focused on. Let's assume Mamdani does become our next mayor. Right? At the end of the day, he doesn't have the power to do the things he's saying. He can't raise taxes. He can't raise real estate taxes. He can't change our transit system. He can't give away free bus rides. It all has to happen in Albany. The night after the election, I spoke to the governor. She was clear, under her watch, whoever the mayor is, she's not raising taxes. So that's sort of a fear that people have. That's not going to be a reality when we get through this.
We've got services.
Listen, at the end of the day, it's spending money and giving away free things isn't the solution. I mean, just one real quick point, right? This city council passed the budget last night, $116 billion. When Mike Bloomberg left office, probably the best mayor we had in modern times, it was $66 billion. So almost twice. Do we have twice as good of services, cleanliness, homelessness issues? No. So we can't just spend money and think that's going to solve the problem. We need good policies that are focused on the issues that ultimately get to the root of the problem.
Scott, thank you for coming in. We wanted to talk about real estate. We're out of time.
Next time.
No, before you go, how good, bad, where are we right now?
Great.
Great. Still great.
We're great. I mean, New York is anywhere in the US is the best real estate market. We're back at levels on the office side of seeing things to 2000.
I know people that are thinking about buying property in New York. All right. They're starting to notice that the prices are going down. It's not great. Now, it depends on, when prices are going down, are you a buyer? Okay, that's good. If you're a seller, it's bad. So, in terms of people selling, it's not so good. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex is super important to take every day, especially if you're 40 years of age or older. Vitamin B complex will help with your electron transport chain that builds up the ATP levels. The first 4 B vitamins helps with that electron transport chain within the mitochondria. Vitamin B complex is going to speed up your metabolism, cellular metabolism, so you'll have more energy. And vitamin B complex helps to protect neurons. Super important. Clarity factor helps to get rid of that brain fog, allows you to concentrate on the tasks that you need to concentrate on at work or at home or in school. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water. And what you're going to notice over time is that your memory will improve and that you're going to have this positive neuroplasticity. And it's a holistic approach. You have to do some exercise, proper diet and exercise is super important. Drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods, stay away from sugary foods. Learn new things, get that positive neuroplasticity going. Take the clarity factor, super important to maintain and support your memory. Stack it with vitamin B complex for that neuroprotection and to boost up that cellular metabolism. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the clarity factor and vitamin B complex. Now, detoxifying your body is super important for your endocrine system and your immune system. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals, allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. Take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water. Do that every day. In addition, if you want to do a more intense detox, take 5 small drops or 10 small drops drink filtered water every day until the bottle's gone, all right? Do that once or twice a year. But I prefer to do the 3 small drops underneath the tongue and drink the filtered water as a daily detox routine. And you can also detox with taking the Gladiator barley or the heirloom barley from my store. So there's different ways to detox, all right? But detoxing will help your endocrine system, help with your glands to function properly, help with your cells to function properly, help with your neurons to function properly, help with your immune system. Super important. So please go to my store and get the zeolite. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. So I disagree with this guy. I think that developers are out of control. The profit margin on these units are so much higher, and they're slowly shrinking the units to maximize profit. And they don't care, because once they sell, they don't care. They're done. They don't care what they do to the society. They got their money. They're collecting their maintenance fee. It's a bullshit game. People need to push back. You can be a capitalist and be against the profit margins on some of these developers.
Not a lot of people know about this brand, but it's one that I and a ton of other college and pro level athletes swear by. It's called Drip Drop. It's for hydration and what?
Mr. President, your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zoran Mamdani, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zoran Mamdani.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation.
On behalf of the nation, that's a Queens boy right there. And that was President Trump warning he will arrest Zoran Mamdani if he impedes ICE operations. That is, if he's elected as New York City's next mayor. Now, as I talked about in my monologue before, New York City mayoral candidate Mamdani, he's as fake as his accents. He's an artificial candidate created to usher in communism, a carefully crafted communist, presented in a nice, sweet package, but nothing about him is organic or grassroots, including his donors. With me now is the man who uncovered and analyzed all the data and all the numbers behind Mamdani's campaign. He's a forensic accountant, Sam Antar. If you recognize Sam, that's because he's the same guy who uncovered Tish James, New York Attorney General, we'll use the word alleged, her alleged fraud. Welcome to the Chris Salcedo Show. So Sam, this was a lot of work. This was a lot of work that you did. Hundreds and it's my fault. What were you to go?
Because I was on the air with you and we were talking about Tish James and the numbers and everything. He says, "Why don't you look for more corruption?" And you gave me the direction. Because of your missing sunsets, I'm not caught in the rain. It's your fault.
It's my fault. Okay, so how can it possibly be that this guy has such a huge coffer, millions of dollars? You were able to uncover that not a single donation came from like a regular person. How's that possible?
Well, first of all, let's talk about sources. I downloaded all the information from the New York City Board of Elections website. It's available to the public. It was a 27,000 row spreadsheet. Okay, taking up over 500 pages. I looked at it both myself. I said, "What? There's something wrong here. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe whatever." There's no way that every ballot came from bundlers.
A bundler is a person who is a professional.
Raises money for the candidate, right? So I run it through Excel tools, I run it through 3 different AIs, and I came up with the same conclusion, and then I still didn't test the AI and did it again. So basically, you have 27,600 and something lines, okay? 70 of them or so were not attributed to bundlers, and the total from those lines was 0.
Zero.
0, 0, 0. Now, when you look at it, you say, okay, the guy has 4.5 million people on social media between YouTube, Instagram, Twitter ex Twitter, and Facebook and whatever, right? And they all tell you, go to the Mamdani campaign website, where, you go and you fill out a form and you donate money. And the form, if you look at the source code, which I did, okay, look at the source code, the money goes right to New York City Votes, who keeps track. Was it bundled money? Was it this? Was it that? Right? Now, based upon the data, okay, all of those commercials, all of that beautiful media coverage that he gets, they slobber over him. Based on all of that, the social media stuff is scripted appearances. Not a single dime ends up in his campaign coffers as a result of all of his appearances. It's all bundled money. Now, it's kind of like a TV show with great ratings. They play the commercials, but nobody buys the product. He's a lab rat, okay? He was engineered in the lab, made for television, okay? But he gets no grassroots results as far as it concerns money. His bundler raised, one single bundler raised 94% of the $1.7 million that he raised from his base. He had another $1.9 million that he raised from PACs on top of that. This is not a grassroots candidate. Now, his bundle, by the way, raised 35% of overall bundler funds attributed to all candidates across the city. And he was 10 times more than the second place bundler.
And so this bundler, we're not going to say who he is, but he is known. He is an avowed socialist. This is a guy who's a professional who makes it his priority, his business to get these type of candidates.
What gets me is, how come none of his money is organically generated? There's the website.
He can be defeated. So that means he can be defeated.
Who's giving him the money? It's all bundled.
It's all bundled. It's all professional funds.
Yes.
Do you think this guy they created him in the lab? He is a manufactured candidate because if New York City falls, the rest of the country will follow.
Right. But you notice his appearances, they're all scripted. All very, very carefully scripted. Even when he cries, it's scripted. He's a phony.
He certainly is.
He's a phony and a fraud. And a bad.
He is. And you think he can be beat?
I think he could be beat, but I'm just a numbers guy. I go through numbers. And don't give me any more numbers to go through.
Real quick, I have to go. Has the Mamdani campaign reached out to you? Because you put this all on social media.
And you tagged him on it. He knows I exist. He's going to ignore it. Because if he doesn't ignore it, if he doesn't ignore it, comes after me, I'll go back at him, just like I went back after the media with Letitia James.
That's it.
I'm not afraid he's an asshole.
Because you have the truth.
Yeah.
You got the truth on your side. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sam, so much for joining us.
Folks, I thank God for my wonderful wife, my kids, my country.
Where's John going? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and support capitalism. Get the nattokinase. Nattokinase is going to break up clots because it's fibrinolytic. Nattokinase will help to improve your lipid profile. It'll help to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels. So that's very important for your cardiovascular health. K2 and D3 work together and do two things. If you do resistance training and take in calcium and magnesium to help with the efficacy of D3, you're going to absorb that calcium. And by doing that resistance training, you're creating a microenvironment to deposit new bone matrix. So it's going to help with bone density. Also, D3 and K2 will help to pull some of that calcium depositing around plaque formation and reduce calcium depositing around plaque. So it's going to help with your cardiovascular health. So take the K2 and the D3, do resistance training, improve your bone density and your cardiovascular health, and stack it with the nattokinase to supercharge the cardiovascular stack. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Take the K2, D3, and the natto kinase. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. You spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last.
This week, Microsoft announcing it is laying off nearly 4% of its workforce as it tries to refocus more on AI. CNBC contributor Mikhail Libram is a Silicon Valley-based journalist. She joins us live this morning. We've also got CNBC's Steve Kovach here at the NASDAQ. Is this the beginning? We got the jobs number later, so that actually sort of plays into this whole situation. Do we believe that AI is the reason?
I think it's excuse, maybe not a reason. I look at like what Mark Benioff said the other day. He said 50% of our work right now is being done by artificial intelligence. If that was true, we'd be hearing about massive layoffs at Salesforce. We'd be hearing about huge improvements to margins and so forth. But we're hearing it increasingly. The Journal did a story on this yesterday, guys. They said, you know, saying the quiet part out loud. Ford CEO is talking about it now. We had Andy Jassy from Amazon talking about it. Those Microsoft layoffs, though, yesterday, no word of AI. They did talk about efficiencies and things like that, leveraging technology, presumably AI, but it was mostly just getting rid of middle managers. AI can't replace that.
Mikhail, what do you think?
So I agree, but I don't think the only options are AI or BS. I think there's a truth somewhere in the middle too. So while I don't believe that these are job losses due to AI, that AI is taking over jobs, and yes, totally agree that we would see a bloodbath if that was really starting to happen. I do think it's the result of the company reorganizing itself around AI, and we saw the same phenomenon in other technological transformations. 2014, Microsoft shed 18,000 jobs as they were making the transition to really focus on mobile and cloud. And so this is kind of a natural thing that happens with Silicon Valley companies when we're going through one of these big technological transformations and reallocations.
But if we were having this conversation 12 months from now, do you think we're going to see a lot more of this, and will it be much more severe?
I think so. I don't know about more severe, but I think, Microsoft has now gone through several waves. Maybe there'll be more, maybe not. By the way, the cuts are really across the board, both geographically and across different divisions. Definitely hearing about some cuts on the Xbox side, various gaming studios. So they're across the board. I do think we'll see more of them, but that said, again, I don't know a single software engineer out here who's actually lost their job to AI. And even if 20 to 30% of the code is being generated at Microsoft now by AI, software engineers do a lot of things. They're not just constantly writing code nonstop. I asked a friend of mine just the other day, who's a software engineer out here, how much of your time are you actually giving off to
The point is that you'll need less coders. So those ones that are experienced coders and the ones that are coming out of college in computer science, there's not going to be as many jobs for you because the AI is an assistant for writing the code. So instead of having 100 coders, you may only need 50 for your organization. I'm just using that as an example. Something similar happened during the early days of CAD, computer-aided design. For an automaker before CAD, you had to have thousands of draftsmen drafting parts for a vehicle. Then CAD started coming in and you needed less of those draftsmen. So certain parts were CAD'd out, others just had typical draftsmen doing it. And it slowly took away the manual draftsman. And then these individuals had to learn a new skill and be able to draft, create car parts and car assemblies in the computer. And over time, there were no draftsmen, manual draftsmen. It was all done on the computer. And then you add in 3-dimension capability, and the computer really reduced the number of draftsmen you needed. So instead of 1,000 to design a car, you only needed 400. Same thing's going to happen in code. AI, you will not need. you will not need as many coders. And because there's so many experienced coders out there, they will take the lion's share of the jobs that are still available. You'll need coders, but you won't need nearly as many. I mean, you could probably go down to 40% in the next couple of years. 40% of the code base will still be employed. All right, the jobs. That means 60% are going to be laid off. Now, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? See, it's a little bit different than what happened during the draftsman days, converting to CAD. They could learn a new skill and get re-employed, right? Even though there were less jobs available. But then what happened is that more vehicle lines could be designed. So slowly over time, there were more vehicle lines being provided by the OEM. So they had to hire more CAD designers. You don't have that. That's not going to happen with this AI. So coders, if you're if you're young and you're thinking about being a coder, you will not get a job. Because it's going to be those ones that are already experienced that will be employed. And many of the ones that are experienced will get laid off. And I suspect that it's about 60% of the labor force that are coders will lose their job within the next, I would say, within the next 3 to 4 years.
Coding, and she said about 10%, they're checking the software, they're testing it, they do a lot of other things. So I do think that there's going to be a lot more, in other companies as well. I don't know about Microsoft, more of this restructuring and reprioritization, but not a huge.
So what's going to happen is the code, there's going to be an assistant. You're going to have less coders that are working with the assistant. They create the code, and then you're going to have that coder, a human coder, being more of a quality assurance. That's what she's talking about, quality assurance. Okay, but do you really need it? If there's hundreds of thousands of coders right now, pre-AI, why do you need so many coders if you have an assistant AI that can make the code rapidly, like within minutes? Because how these coders work now is you work with an AI assistant and you chunk it. You tell it, I want you to create code for a particular language to do this function, and they cut and paste it into their compiler. Now, of course, they have to do a quality assurance. They got to make sure that everything stitches together when they're cutting and pasting. But that's what the coders are doing now. And then they have to do the testing, the beta testing and all this. You don't need as many coders. That's the point. So what are the coders going to do? Now, that's just coders using assistant AI. Now let's go with the banking industry. Let's say you have an analyst, a team of analysts, 100 analysts analyzing different companies, maybe for mergers and acquisitions. All right? Now you have an AI that can read in data sets and do an analytical work and produce Excel spreadsheets or produce PowerPoints. So you don't need as many analysts to do that function. So instead of having 100 analysts, you only need 25. What are these analysts going to do? And a lot of these analysts, that's entry level. Entry level to about 1 to 3 years of experience. And then usually they get promoted into like a program manager or whatever. So the entry level into these industries is going to diminish.
Due to AI anytime soon.
It seems like it would be a good time for a lot of the other Mag 7 names or big cap tech names outside of Meta to examine that year of efficiency.
Right.
Meta really gained a lot in terms of stock market value because of the year of efficiency. And with AI kicking in, the ability to rate those efficiencies much easier, I would imagine.
We hear about that all the time, but we just don't see the evidence of it yet. I mean, there's so many anecdotal stories when I talk to CTOs at companies and I say, are you guys using AI? Did you buy a Copilot license and so forth? And so many people say, yeah, we're testing it, but it's too expensive. It doesn't do enough. We see some moderate gains in productivity. It's not really fulfilling that promise that we heard of. But let's extrapolate this a little bit, because I was talking to, I can't really say who it was, but I was talking to someone who works in HR at one of these big tech companies.
Yep.
They are already talking about a universe, not in the not too distant future, where your boss is an AI agent. And they're already talking about within this company, planning for a world where you're literally reporting to an artificial intelligent agent. What does that look like? How do you handle human resources? How do you manage people like that? These companies are already thinking that way.
I've been talking to people about that. Yeah, I talk to people about who think that they're gonna have sort of these agent hierarchies, where there'd be an AI boss that would be bossing around, if you will, other AI agents that would have different tasks.
Yep.
If you were to think of sort of a various hierarchy, one might be responsible for.
And there's social learning within the AI. Those different agents are going to share information with each other and socially learn. So it's going to reduce siloing within a company and accelerate the learning process within the AI infrastructure. I'm telling you, we need to regulate this. We are seeing the very beginnings of the decoupling of labor and capital.
Reporter, one might be a reporter, and they may have an editor or a producer, or in this
Why
universe.
couldn't you make an AI agent?
That does it all. Yeah, why can't it do it all?
Why is there layers of agents and the bureaucracy?
I think early on.
You have to do that because it's like a problem. All right. And if you break the problem up into small components, it's easier to actually do the computation. If everything was in just one agent, the computation would be too burdensome. It would take too long. It would take too much energy. That's the reason. It's like doing a mathematics problem. If you look at complex mathematics, like in calculus, you have to break up the problem to be able to solve it. That's why. But, of course, a stupid journalist doesn't know.
We've all learned through prompting. You have to do it. Everything is actually quite specialized. You can't, if you just tell AI to go do something.
You have to be specific.
It can't really do it, right? It's just like a person, by the way. A person is specialized in something, and they have sort of a strategy and a plan to do it. It's not like it becomes an all-seeing robot, I don't think.
And to your point, that's why we're not seeing huge layoffs, because they can't take those jobs.
Mikhail, what do you think about that? You think we're all
But when you have more and more agents that are specialized and you link them together in an organization, you don't need as many people. I'm telling you, labor and capital are decoupling. It's just starting.
Have an AI boss soon?
No, I don't, not at all. I think we will have an AI, helper, an AI assistant. I think that makes a lot more sense to me. By the way, there's a company out here called Latticeworks. They're in the HR space, and
She's wrong. First of all, you can completely automate HR through AI, completely. Secondly, what's going to happen is you're going to have a C-suite that's going to be human bosses, and they are to reduce organizational friction. They won't have human VPs. They'll have AI VPs managing AI agents and humans. So the C-suite will be fine. Now, could you AI a C-suite? Yeah, obviously. But the thing is that that's not what's going to happen. The C-suite is going to start using AI to reduce the number of VPs or directors for particular divisions. And that way they can have less organizational friction. And I think that's what, I have a feeling that's what Microsoft's doing when they're getting rid of their middle management. They're getting rid of that director level and assistant director level.
launched a product a while back that was onboarding AI agents, and there was such a backlash, they decided to pull the product. They're heavy into AI and using AI for all sorts of HR, practices, functions, but that one didn't go over well. I think as a culture, corporate cultures, even on the startup level, like not quite ready for that. But yes, we'll have more and more of AI, a lot of experimentation going on right now, not a lot of use cases that are really proving themselves quite yet. But I do think we'll continue to see people working hand in hand. Vibe coding is real. I mean, engineers are leaning on it, and I think it's going to get better and better, and it's going to have more and more use cases. But I absolutely don't think that we're going to be, getting like 360 performance reviews from an AI bot anytime soon. Probably never.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol helps with the gene expression of build muscle. It has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with that gene expression. This Myotrol will also help with the health of your mitochondria so you have energy to maintain and build muscle. So take Myotrol, especially if you're age 40 or older. If you're an athlete, taking Myotrol will help with your fitness for your sport. Taking Gladiator Barley by itself will help you to build muscle, detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals by using superoxide dismutase. Now, if you stack Myotrol with Gladiator Barley, you will gain strength quicker and muscle. So the best advice here is to do resistance training, take the Gladiator Barley, and take the Myotrol together. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. Click the link in the description of this video and all my videos. Get to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
Socialist mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani wants to bring New York City back to the 70s and 80s.
I want to say it very clearly, because both Mr. Tilson and Andrew Cuomo's Republican billionaire donors have been lying about me. I will not defund the police. I will work with the police because I believe the police have a critical role to play in creating.
We didn't have to look long for his tweets to figure out he was lying. Queer liberation means defund the police. We can tax the rich, heal the sick, house the poor, defund the police, and build a socialist New York. Defund the NYPD. Here to discuss is Republican New York mayoral candidate Curtis Sliwa. Curtis, thank you for being here. You founded the Guardian Angels back in the 70s because of the violence we were seeing. Explain what defunding the police would mean to this city in this moment.
In this city, with the Guardian Angels, we witnessed the celebration of the bicentennial. That was 1976. First time there were fireworks by Macy's over the East River. Most of my Guardian Angels were from the inner city, Black and Hispanic. They never saw a celebration of that kind of patriotic pride. Macy's has had that celebration ever since. I think Zoran has not experienced that because he didn't come from America. He wasn't born and raised here like I, the consummate New Yorker. He came from Uganda, brand new immigrant, okay. But I think it's very important to understand the link. And if you don't understand the history of America, it's like in the 1960s, it was the counterculture. Right. There were people who were flying Viet Cong flags. They were saying better red than dead. As our American heroes were being transported back by the hundreds in body bags. It was a difficult time because we couldn't understand why other Americans would attack America and our servicemen. But I'm seeing this happen all over again 60 years later. I'm the patriotic candidate. I'm the one who is based in the American flag. In fact, you know where I'll be tomorrow? Where? The longest running 4th of July parade in the nation, Travis in Staten Island, where patriotism lives.
I love it. Okay. Mamdani has celebrated his background as a Muslim immigrant. But This broke just before the show. According to the New York Times, he identified on his college application as Asian and African American. He doesn't consider himself black, but said the application didn't allow for the complexity of his background. What do you make of that, Curtis?
Well, I do know he is a practicing Muslim, and I've advised our colleagues, of which there are many on our side of this issue, because we know Zoran will destroy this city. Do not attack his religion. Leave the religion alone. If you don't want to see him elected, there are 1 million Muslims in New York City who can vote. Many of them with conservative values, many of them who voted for Donald Trump for president. So you
But
can
he's made
criticize
that background the center of his campaign.
But you can criticize him as being a communist, socialist, anti-Semite Czech, but leave the religion alone. Now, he would consider himself Southeast Asian, although he's of Indian heritage, his mother and father. He grew up in Uganda. So I guess you could sort of put it in the blender. I don't have a problem with how he self-identified.
Last week on this show, I have to get to this. You said you would join forces with Eric Adams if it meant beating Mamdani and sparing the city that candidacy. Have you heard from Eric Adams? How's it going?
You understand satire. You understand.
I live for satire.
Understood. That's why I asked it. It was satire. It was tongue in cheek. I should have never said that. There is no way.
You would not do a coalition candidacy with Adams.
How could I work with a guy who is last in the polls? That's Eric Adams.
Okay.
Who is behind me, Andrew Cuomo, and Zoran. So maybe Eric Adams should drop out of this race. He's last in the polls.
Would you join forces with Andrew Cuomo if it meant defeating Mamdani?
That would be like putting 2 scorpions in a brandy glass.
It's happened before. Look at the polling. He's at 35%. Put the poll back up, guys. I lost it. Andrew Cuomo's at 29. You're at 16. You might be able to do a combo here with Cuomo. Look, if John Adams and Thomas Jefferson can get together, you can.
Excuse me, we're not at Wendy's doing a combo here. I'm running for mayor, and I'm running until November 4th. I'm the only consummate New Yorker. They're all from out of New York. I'm the only born and raised, patriotic, running Republican for mayor in New York City, and I'm not leaving this race. There'll be no unity ticket. I will beat Zoran.
Okay, you heard it here first, Curtis Lewa. Happy July 4th. Thank you for being here. Hey, Sean Hanley.
I think Adams has a slight advantage over Mamdani as long as Democrats and Republicans can rally for Adams. Just slight lead. All right? But it's going to be close. And Mamdani might win. I was talking to someone that's younger and they're, aligned with maybe some of the philosophies of Mamdani. And I'll tell you, that younger generation has been hoodwinked to believe in this socialistic rhetoric. And it's because of what they're being taught in school. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the heirloom barley. The heirloom barley can help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. This is a protein powder. Take it every day. This is a month's supply. Mix it with soft foods, filtered water, a smoothie, or even milk. But take it every day to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. Also, get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost is super important to take every day. It has a very comprehensive compound profile here. Take a look at the label on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It will help to target certain systems like your cardiovascular system, brain function, musculature, boost up your energy levels, and rev up your metabolism. You will notice the difference after 72 hours from taking this. You're going to have a lot more energy. You're going to have more vitality. You're going to have a steady burn of energy throughout the whole day. You're going to be able to sleep better. You'll get rid of that brain fog. You'll be able to concentrate. When you do resistance training and cardiovascular training, you're going to notice added gains. You're going to recover from your workout quicker. This is magical stuff you should be taking every day. This is a month's supply. It's a powder. You mix it with soft foods, filtered water, milk, for a smoothie, take it every day. It's a great way to control your A1C levels, and it is a great way to lose weight if you want to lose weight. If you're trying to lose weight, take it for your breakfast or for your lunch, and you're going to notice you're going to have a safely weight loss until you get to your target weight. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost. It's a great way to get healthy. And if you do the holistic modalities that I've been telling you, like proper exercise, these 4 modalities, resistance training, cardio, stretching, balancing, learning new things, read, write, talk to people in the real world, reduce your screen time, have some sort of spirituality or some sort of mindfulness, bring down your cortisol levels, go into parasympathetic mode, drink filtered water, stay away from processed foods, maintain a good sleep pattern, get into those 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. These are all very important to slow down the aging process, to boost up your longevity and your vitality. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $150 or more, you get a gift until supplies last.
And another stock closing in the red is Microsoft, after announcing or word of its plans to lay off more than 9,000 employees came today. This comes after 6,000 people were let go back in May. Largest number of layoffs in technology so far this year. And joining us now to discuss is Alex Kantrowitz, big technology founder and a CNBC contributor. Alex, welcome. It's tempting to say this is about AI taking jobs, but for Microsoft, I'm not sure that's the case. I do see a movement across tech. We've talked about it here on Overtime with Intuit.
Labor and capital are just starting to decouple because of AI. Microsoft's restructuring is a combination of AI and bloated management.
PR and marketing jobs to replace some of those with AI, but when it comes to coding, there's still demand at the high end for the coders who can use and create AI capability, no?
That's absolutely right. These layoffs had nothing to do with AI replacing jobs. For almost the entire economy, AI is just not good enough to be able to take over jobs. We had Anthropic try this experiment where they had AI run a vending machine, and it couldn't get it right. It was barking down. It just showed that their most cutting edge technology was not even able to stock the company fridge. So I think these layoffs from Microsoft are retooling, cutting in areas that it felt needed to be trimmed down a little bit, maybe saving some money because it is going to be spending $80 billion on CapEx this year. But this idea that Microsoft is replacing employees with AI is just not true. It's not feasible.
Now, if you're a high-tech company, do you want to televise in the business channel that AI is taking away jobs? Because people would be fearful and they would stop using the technology. And when you use ChatGPT and you use these generative AIs, you're feeding the machine, you're teaching it. All right. So if you're warn the public that it's going to take away your job, do you think people would use the technology? Well, some people would, but others would not. So it would slow down the progress of the AI learning workflow. Right? So of course they're not going to admit to it. But what are McKinsey doing? What's McKinsey doing in terms of their consultants? They're reducing the number of consultants that they have. You know why? Because their AI system that they've trained can create the PowerPoints for their consulting. So they don't need as many people to make the PowerPoints. So it is getting better. And again, it's at that, I think it's attacking 2 different areas of the economy. One, the coders, you need less coders because you have an AI assistant. But the other side of it is that it will be able to generate analytics, summarize those analytics with high accuracy. So you don't need as many analysts to do the analytics, to make the PowerPoints, to make the Excel spreadsheets. So McKinsey is hiring less consultants. So it's happening. It's starting to happen.
Not the case today.
But I do think, Alex, that some of these companies are replacing certain work with AI. It's causing them not to need to hire entry-level employees to do grunt work, and it's causing expectations of existing employees to shift. Sridhar Ramaswamy over at Snowflake has told me, and I think said on the call, that he's really pushed his coders to use AI more to increase their productivity, maybe not replacing jobs so much as keeping them from needing to hire as many more people, right?
Yeah, that very well could be the case. I was speaking with the head of revenue at one of these big labs just a few hours ago, and asked how many companies are.
So when people are coming out of college, where do they get their jobs? They have this high debt because of education. How do they pay for their housing? How do they get food? So a company is increasing their productivity and improving their margins, but there's a beginning of the decoupling of labor and capital. Now the people that have jobs will go, well, my job's protected. Really? Because eventually your job will be taken over by AI. If it's taken over the entry-level version, it'll eventually take over the ones that are more experienced. It's just a matter of time. And better yet, it's a matter of circumstance. These companies will start the major structural unemployment when we go into the recession. When we go into a recession and there's layoffs, there'll be layoffs and there will not be rehiring, and that's structural. Oh, it's just the entry level right now. Oh, just wait. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. There's going to be a decoupling of labor and capital. And there's going to be more and more people pushing for socialism after that. So people need to push back and say, well, wait a minute. Eventually, you're going to take the experienced jobs away. And what happens when you don't hire younger individuals? They're not going to have the skills to work in corporate America. They're not going to have the skills of their discipline. They're not going to develop these soft skills and getting job experience. So you're going to have a unemployed or underemployed population that's educated. Does that sound like a more efficient society? Well, it may have been efficient for the company. And so your stock price goes up because you told Wall Street, you don't have to hire as many people. So your margins aren't at 20% for profit. Your profit margin isn't 20%, it's now 35%. So your earnings per share goes up. And so people buy your stock. But then the recession comes eventually. And you start laying off people. And people aren't buying goods and services. So the overall economy starts to falter because people aren't being hired and part of that whole flow of consumerism. So instead of having a 17 or 20% multiple earnings per share, they'll go down to 5. So you may have a stock price that's at a market cap of, let's say $100 billion. Maybe it goes down to 50 billion. So if you're a shareholder, you just lost half your value. There's a negative feedback loop because of this decoupling of labor and capital that's going to actually hurt the shareholder. But it takes a while for that to happen. At first, the first stage of this, there's going to be an increase in share price because of efficiency. But if you get enough of these companies doing this, what will happen is that the overall economy starts to falter, goes into recession, and people aren't buying goods and services. And so the multiples will start to come down. Instead of at 20, it'll go down to 15 times earnings. And then because it's a structural unemployment and more implementation of AI, it'll go down to 10. And so you're going to see a drop of these companies' share price. Now, the way to play this, if you're smart, If it happens like I think it happens, you ride it up, you buy shares in a broad index, stay away from individual stocks, buy into broad indexes, buy into commodities, all right? And you're riding this up. It may take 10 years, but right when that recession happens, you start shorting. You start shorting and you make money on the way down. And then you accumulate cash and you'll be okay. That's how you're going to survive this bullshit.
To reduce full-time employee numbers with this technology. Basically never happens is what this person said. Now, are some companies trying to become more efficient and doing more with the people they have? That's possible. But I would note that for as many people that try to do that, there is a probably equal or larger number of people who say, look, we have so many things on the roadmap that we haven't gotten to yet. We're going to take that increased productivity or increased efficiency and actually get to the things that we want to do.
Okay. We are seeing so much money from the big tech companies, Microsoft, I mean, obviously Meta with the whole talent war situation heating up and how much, you know, they're paying some of these folks that they're bringing in from OpenAI and other places. We are seeing more and more money go towards developing these AI capabilities much more aggressively. So whether it is the layoffs at Microsoft or whether it is some of the retooling we perhaps may be starting to see publicly or not so publicly at the other companies though, does it represent a diversion of cash away from more traditional tech businesses to AI?
I think there definitely can be a shift. I mean, the money's going to have to come from somewhere, especially if you're doling out contracts like Meta is. I mean, I don't think any company outside of Meta is giving these multi-million dollars, some might say up to $100 million, according to some reports, contracts for AI researchers to come over. But AI talent costs a lot of money. And so if you do want to play there, you might have to divert from other divisions to your AI research divisions. You're certainly not going to be cutting investment there. But I should also note that Microsoft in particular is a company that beat consensus estimates on profitability in the most recent quarter. It's doing great. And the market rewards companies for investing in AI. So I don't think it's going to be as much of a pull, like what do we cut to invest? Maybe some of that. I think largely what we're seeing with Microsoft is just them trying to figure out where their company works best. And I really don't see a read-through to the rest of big tech, at least not with this magnitude.
Sounds good.
Now think about it. You get a large population that loses their job, they're educated, they start losing their homes, people start to go bankrupt. Do you think that there's not going to be a revolution? Now, it won't be like the American Revolution. It'll be more like the French Revolution, where it's going after the aristocracy, the tech aristocracy, the billionaires, the multi-billionaires that made all this money in pushing efficiency in the society. So there's going to be a great war that will happen if it happens the way I think it will, where you're going to have this huge buildup, right, in the economy for efficiency, and then all of a sudden a crash. And that crash, when that recession happens, people will start to lose their homes. It's not going to be a regular recession. It's building systemic risk because it's structural unemployment and decoupling of labor and capital, and because people have debt. They have mortgages, they have car payments, credit card payments, or school loans. And when you can't pay those, then the banks start to accumulate default on those loans, and the banking industry starts to suffer. And if the banking industry is starting to suffer, then you're talking about illiquidity in almost all asset classes, equities and treasuries, muni bonds, corporate debt. That's Lehman all over again. And it's going to be a lot worse. Lehman was just a hint of what could transpire. Now, I'm a firm believer in America, right? Don't bet against America, ever. But that doesn't mean there won't be a revolution. It means the revolution will win. But if this does play out, then you have to kill AI. you have to destroy the energy system that feeds it. And you have to push back on the titans of tech. These multi-uber billionaires, and claw back their money. Take their wealth away. Now, if the revolution becomes super violent, where you're taking down the power grid to kill the AI, most likely it will bleed over to killing the aristocracy, just like the French Revolution. But don't bet against America. America will win in this, but it won't be the oligarchs that win. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. C60 is a very potent antioxidant. It's going to soak up free radicals almost 1,000 times more than vitamin C. You take a teaspoon a day on an empty stomach for best absorption, and what that's going to do is it's going to soak up free radicals, reduce the stress on the cell and your tissues, help with the health of the mitochondria. Your energies in the cell will start to improve because your ATP will go up. And by doing that, your cells are going to perform better. Your neurons will perform better. Your endocrine system will perform better. Your glands will perform better. Your immune system will perform better. Soaking up free radicals at the vascular level will reduce plaque formation because you're reducing oxidized LDL. You're reducing the formation of oxidized LDL. If you have a lot of oxidized LDL, you have plaque formation. So you're reducing that. That's super important. In addition, you can get it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. It's cheaper to get the higher ounce configuration. You can get an extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or avocado oil. Take a teaspoon a day every day. I've been taking this since 2016. Every day. Teaspoon a day. Every day. Soak up those free radicals, and you're going to notice that your body's performing better. And within a year, you're going to physically notice a slowing of age. And if you couple this with resveratrol, ubiquinol, NAD+, clarity factor, or even the core protocol, which I will go over, you're going to get added benefits. Like, for example, the first pillar of the core protocol is taking max 35, max 14, or cleanse to boost up your immune system. C60 is the second pillar to soak up those free radicals. The third pillar is the turmeric, the ashwagandha, and the lignans to boost up that immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. And the fourth pillar, boomer boost up those energy levels and rev up the metabolism. You're targeting all these different points where you're slowing down the aging process. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Take it every day, and it'll help your health and wellness. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.